Hello everyone, and happy Chanukah. I'm Eylon Levy, head of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. Welcome to our live special online event, The Modern Day Maccabees of the October 7th War. For the past 14 months, Israel has been fighting a 7-front war against the Iranian regime and its proxy armies. 8 fronts, if you include attacks on Jews worldwide. Over the next hour, we will share with you 8 stories of Israeli heroes, ordinary people who have done extraordinary things in the midst of extreme danger. One story for every night of Chanukah. We're going to shine a light on inspiring stories of heroism, on the incredible resilience of ordinary Israeli citizens fighting to live normal lives in the most abnormal circumstances, as our country has come under attack from every direction. You don't have to be a spokesperson to speak up for Israel, and you don't have to be a real Maccabee to be a hero of Israel. Before we embark on our journey, one request. The Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office is 100% funded by private donors, generous people like you who want to help us speak up for Israel. We're crowdfunding, and we're working to raise $180,000 by the end of the year. And we've just had a Chanukah miracle. An anonymous donor is willing to match your donation dollar for dollar. In the original Chanukah story, a little jar of oil kept the candles burning on the temple menorah 8 times longer than expected. And thanks to our matching donor, your donation will last for twice as long. So if you've got some spare Chanukah gelt in your pocket, please go to our JGIVE page. It's in the notes of this YouTube broadcast, and give generously to support my team. You can also book a cameo greeting from me, and all the proceeds will go straight back into supporting our work here to speak up for Israel and the Jewish people in the October 7th War. Anyway, let's light Chanukah candles together. This year, many Jewish families will be lighting an extra candle every night. This candlestick holder is a project of the Hostage Families Forum, which we're proud to support. You can buy it on their website. It's a donation to help them keep fighting for their loved ones trapped in the Gaza terror dungeons. It'll shine a light for the hostages' families on the incredible love and support that they have across the diaspora and among our non-Jewish allies. And they really need it this holiday season. Anyway, let's light the candles and let's get cracking. I have a special Bring Them Home kippah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. אמן. Chag Sameach. Israel is a nation of everyday heroes, and our first Chanukah hero is Rafael Hayun. Rafael Hayun is a civilian hacker. Long before October 7th, he understood the importance of listening to the enemy. With his special equipment, he monitored Hamas's communications and gathered open source intelligence on the terrorist army in Gaza as an ordinary citizen. Israeli authorities knew what Rafael was doing, and they authorized it. For years, Rafael shared life-saving information with Israel's security forces. Rafael knew that Hamas was a serious threat to the people of Israel and that its communications had to be monitored. 6 months before the October 7th massacre, his listening devices were taken away from him. Rafael lost his ability to closely monitor the enemy as it was plotting the horrors of October 7th. As the massacre unfolded, Rafael knew right away that the worst-case scenario, it was actually happening. He used every means at his disposal, from his own home, to direct security forces to where they needed to go. His actions on October 7th, as an ordinary citizen, saved countless lives. Today, Rafael has his equipment back again, and he's authorized to continue his important work. Rafael's story makes clear, ordinary citizens can do extraordinary things. Rafael Hayun is a hero of Israel. This is his story.
בשעה 6:28 אני שומע את השריקות של הטילים. זה עדיין לא הפיצוץ אפילו, זה רק השריקות. אף אחד לא צריך להגיד לי כלום. אני מבין שאנחנו באירוע שאני עזרתי עליו. ואני מדליק את המחשבים, ומדליק את הציוד שיש לי, ומתחיל לקרוא מה שקורה בשטח אצל האויבים שלנו, בקבוצות שלהם. ואני קורא על מה שקורה, ומתחיל לקבל המון קריאות. רפאל, כפרה עליך, שלח כוחות לחולית למפקד שלי, המפקד לי שם מחוץ לבית שלו. כפרה על הלב שלך, אנחנו לא יכולים לצאת מפה. לפני 13 שנה כל הדבר הזה התחיל בעצם. התעסקתי בהאקינג, פורץ לכל מיני מחשבים, בגדול בעולם. באחד הפעמים נכנסתי למחשב, ושמעתי שם בעצם שיחה בין שני ערבים. ושלחתי את זה לאיזה חבר דרוזי ב-8200 שהכרתי אז, שהתרגם לי מה הם מדברים. אז הוא אמר לי שמדברים שם לחלק פחיות לחיילים איפשהו באיזה צומת בחברון, ממש לפרטי פרטים. שלחתי לו את ההקלטה עם התרגום, הוא לא ענה לי באותו רגע. למחרת הוא שלח לי הודעה, תשמע, אתמול הצלת לי את החיילים בחברון. זה נתן לי נחת שאי אפשר להסביר אותה בכלל. ואז אני מתחיל לפרוץ לכל מיני מחשבים בלבנון. הגעתי למצב שכל מקום שיש בו אויבים, אני בעצם מחובר אליו. זאת אומרת, אם אנחנו מדברים על עזה, אם אנחנו מדברים על לבנון, אם אנחנו מדברים על איראן, אם אנחנו מדברים על איו"ש, אם אנחנו מדברים על מזרח ירושלים, אם זה צריך להאזין אז אני מאזין, ואם זה צריך לפרוץ מצלמות או לדאוג להגיע למידע שיכול לעזור לכוחות שלנו, פשוט מביא את המידע הזה. אני מתחיל לקבל המון קריאות גם מכוחות שלנו שרוצים לדעת איפה לחלץ, כי גם מחבלים התחפשו לחיילים, ואתה לא יודע מה לעשות. ואני מקבל את הקריאות ומתחיל להכווין כוחות. יש מלא הרוגים שם. מפקד הצמ"ה המטכ"לי, צריך את העזרה של רפאל, אין אף אחד זמין. ואני כותב לו, שלחתי כוח. שלחתי לי שם כוח. ואז אחרי זה בערך חצי שעה, שעה, הוא שולח לי את זה. כן, רפאל, אחי, כל זה 800 שירץ אותם. אחי, תקשיב רגע, אני 3 לוחמים ברכב שלי ועוד כמה בדרך. מכף רגל ועד ראש חמושים, תגיד לי לאן להגיע. חבר'ה, לעצור רק רפאל הגיע. הולך. טוב לראות אותך בשטח, בוא תראה מה עשית. אנחנו פה מניין מצומצם מאוד, ורק במניין הזה אנשים יש 3 משפחות שמתקיימות בזכותך.
זה אילן. את אילן, לאשתו קוראים סימה. זוג מדהים. אנחנו חילצנו אותם מהשכונה פה, בזכותך אחי.
אני איבדתי 37 חברים רק ב7 באוקטובר. 37 חברים! זה אנשים שאני מדבר איתם יום יום. איבדתי אותם. אין עוד, הם לא קיימים יותר. ושאני עוצר את עצמי, פשוט עוצר את עצמי ואני אומר, רפאל, אתה חייב להיות חזק. אתה חייב להיות חזק כי יש עוד אנשים שאתה יכול להציל. יש עוד אנשים שאתה יכול להציל, תעזוב אותך מה מדברים, אל תיחס לאף אחד. תעשה את מה שאתה יודע לעשות. אני יודע שברגע שאני מוציא את הסיפור שלי האישי החוצה, אני יודע שאני גם מסכן את עצמי, אני יודע שאני גם חושף את עצמי למקומות שלא צריך לחשוף. ההחלטה שלי היא מונעת משתי דברים מאוד עיקריים, כאילו. צד אחד, שקודם כל אף אחד לא עשה את זה לפני, והציבור חייב לדעת האמת מתישהו. ודבר שני שהוא מאוד חשוב, זה לתקן. המסר הגדול ביותר בכל הסיפור הזה, זה שכל אדם שרוצה לעזור, ומרגיש שהוא יכול לעזור, שינסה לעזור.
What an incredible story. And the really incredible thing is that it's not unique. It's just one example of how on October 7th, ordinary Israeli citizens became everyday heroes, jumping into action to save friends, families, neighbors, even total strangers. Please join the conversation with us on the YouTube broadcast. Write down in the comments. We want to know, what do you think about this story? What do you think about all the heroes we're going to present tonight? Tell us where you're following us from. Tell us who your personal modern-day Maccabee personal hero is. Esther Marcus is a resilience counselor. Her job is to treat people who have endured trauma. Long before the October 7th massacre, Esther treated many people who had experienced trauma. She lives near the Gaza border, in an area where Israelis have been living with rocket attacks from Hamas for the last 20 years. Life under fire has taken a toll on everyone's mental health. When Hamas launched its invasion, Esther hid with her family in their shelter. And while she was in the shelter, and while terrorists were rampaging through her community, she began taking calls from people who needed her help. Even as she was in danger, Esther put other people's health and safety above her own. Esther and her family survived the October 7th massacre. But tragically, 4 months later, Esther's husband died of cardiac arrest. He's recognized as a victim of the October 7th massacre, and we remember and honor him as such. Esther is a hero of Israel. This is her story.
The 6th of October is my birthday. So my daughter was here with her family, her husband and 2 babies, and my son on the 7th of October. For some reason, I was up super early. 6:30, I opened the door here, and as I opened the door, the alarms sounded, and it was obvious from the very first seconds that something was very different this time, because we're used to hearing the alarm Seva Adom, but this time it was crazy because it was Seva Adom, Adom, Seva Adom, and there was immediately a different vibe in the air. And I rushed back into the house, shut the door, rushed back in. Within seconds, everybody got up and we went into our safe room. We heard explosions already. We also received a message within 10-15 minutes from the kibbutz telling us to lock ourselves in our safe room. And then my phone started going. The first phone calls were from where I work, the Resilience Centre and the local council, to make sure that the hotline was running. When we received the message saying that they think there's been an infiltration of terrorists into the area, that's when something switched in my mind and said, Esther, it's really okay, just do what you have to do now. We're already hearing shooting as well, because terrorists had already, by this stage, come into our kibbutz. I was very aware that I had to hold a balance between my personal fears, which I basically suppressed all the way down, and helping my family maintain their anxiety, and at the same time answer these phone calls. There were moments when I can say that I was scared, and even then I don't think I fully understood the severity of what was going on. I didn't then know. When I was scared, I was more scared for the family, scared that something crazy is going on here, and I definitely felt in my body that something terrible is happening. You ask if I consider myself or my behavior as being heroic. Absolutely not. I just happen to be here. This is the job that I do and the job that I've been doing for 9 years, working in the Resilience Centre. I consider it an absolute privilege that I'm in this position and able to help. And for years I've been answering the hotline, and for years giving therapy and helping people get the therapy that they require from a very, very strong and powerful belief in human beings. That it's incredible, the resilience that we have. So I don't see it at all that we're heroes, which again corresponds with the first response team, that they were obviously heroes to me and to everybody else. Regarding everything that we're going through, the ongoing war, I always say we have to remember it's not just the 7th of October. First of all, it's 24 years prior to the 7th of October of receiving rocket attacks and tunnel threats, etc., etc. 7th of October brought us to a whole new level regarding trauma and horrific experiences. We set up these resilience centres which help people tell the story of the 7th of October. And again, we had to employ many more people. We were 17 people before the 7th of October. We became nearly 200. Men have changed tremendously. Women also, they just literally run out of energies. And in my personal opinion, it's not just Israel and our surrounding countries. It's the whole of the Jewish people. When I went abroad to speak to people and then to hear and to see what's going on campuses and how people are being affected, And I always talk that it's in our DNA. Survival is definitely in our DNA, and we need each other now more than ever. Another huge lesson, and certainly for me in resilience, is to be able to put up my hand and say, yes, I've been a victim. Yes, and I need help. And yes, I'm vulnerable. And I need people to hug me and hold me and invite me for meals and take care of me. Being brave and courageous, in my opinion, also means being vulnerable and being aware of where we need help and being ready to ask for that help, which isn't so obvious when I went into the field of therapy. It was obvious to me to help other people, having been trained to do it. And maybe even from when I was a little girl, to be a brownie, we were told lend a hand, take care of others. It's built in with me. That's something that I received as an education from my parents, to look after other people, look out for other people. Eventually I stopped using that metaphor of learning to swim under the water. I feel like we have built the ship now, and we've even got a few lifeboats. But I do still feel that I'm running a marathon and someone keeps moving the finishing post. And until the hostages come home and until this war finishes, I think that's what it's going to be like.
Esther doesn't think that she is a hero, but she absolutely is, because dealing under fire not only to protect people's physical safety, but their psychological and emotional safety and well-being as well, that in the Jewish tradition is what we call pikuach nefesh, and she's a hero. Tell us what you think of her story. Tell us what you think of Rafael Hayun's story in the YouTube comments. We want to hear from you. I'm reading them throughout the broadcast. We want to hear what you think of our modern-day Maccabees and how they inspire you to step up and to speak up. On the morning of Saturday, October 7th, 2023, Rami Davidian was at home in Moshav Patish, a short drive from the Gaza border. Rami worked as a fuel distributor. Saturday was a day off from work, Shabbos. Shortly after Hamas's invasion began, he received a call from his friend who asked him to go and save someone. Rami didn't have a full picture of what was happening. He didn't know that 3,000 Hamas terrorists had invaded. He didn't know that Hamas controlled the roads. He didn't know that Hamas terrorists were killing or taking hostage everyone they could find. Rami thought that he would be on the road for a few minutes, and then he'd come home after he found the one person he knew needed rescuing. But while he was on the road, his phone rang again and again and again and again. It wasn't just one person who needed rescuing. It was hundreds. Rami Davidian rescued more than 700 people on October 7th. The car that was meant to save one person saved 700. Talk about miracles. Rami is a hero of Israel. This is his story.
אני מתעורר קצת לפני האזעקות, רציתי ללכת לכבד את האזכרה של אבא שלי, אבל ב6:45 הטלפון לא הפסיק לצלצל לי, ועל הקו חברי הטוב אמיר לוי, והוא ביקש ממני רמי ללכת להציל את בן, ואני אומר לו 5 דקות אני יוצא. אשתי רודפת אחריי החוצה, ומנסה בכל הכוח לעצור אותי. 5 דקות האלה עברו להיות 48 שעות מטורפות. אז אני פונה ימינה, נוסע בערך קילומטר, ואני פוגש נחיל של ילדים רצים לכל עבר. כשאני עוצר, צועקים לי, תציל אותנו, תציל אותנו. אני לא מאמין להם. אני לא מאמין שאחד אומר לי, רצחו את החבר שלי, את החברה, את החברים, מחבלים באוויר, ירו עלינו טיל, האוטו שלנו נשרף. זה משהו שלא קורה אצלנו במדינה שלנו. לוקח את שתי הידיים ומתחיל לצעוק אליהם, בוא אליי, זה רמי, בואו, ואני צועק וצועק, ואחד מביא את השני. אני מצליח לאחד מעל 450 ילדים. אני מתחיל להניע את האירוע, מביא את החתנים שלי עם טנדרים, את הבני דודים. אנחנו מתחילים להוביל את כולם לפטיש, כל הצעירים האלה. אני מגיע למיקום של בן, מוציא את בן. על הדרך של החילוץ של בן, אני מחלץ עוד 14 נערים. אחד הנערים מבקש ממני לחלץ את החברה שלו, היא הלכה לאיבוד. אני אומר לו, שלח לה את הטלפון שלי, שלח לי מיקום, ואני כבר טס להחזיר אותה. אבל קורה משהו מוזר, אחרי 5 דקות נסיעה, כשאני עוזב את הצעירים האלה, הטלפון שלי מתחיל לקבל 4,000. הודעות כתובות, הודעות קוליות, טלפונים, בשעות האלה לא היה כתובת לאף אחד, אז זה היה רק רמי ורמי ורמי. הלב מדמם. רמי לא יודע להכיל דברים כאלה. הודעות קשות, מהורים, מתחננים. וככה אני נכנס פנימה, עם החלטות קשות, עם מיקומים. אני נכנס ומתחיל להוציא קבוצות, מתחיל להוציא בודדים ממקומות. אני גם מרגיע אותם וגם מכוון אותם. תשכבו, לא לזוז, אני מגיע, אני בחילוץ אחר. אני נכנס לחילוצים הבאים, אבל כבר בחילוצים האלה, אני מבין שיש אירוע גדול. מחבלים שורצים כל הזמן עם אופנועים, סביב המיקומים של הילדים, של הבנות, של הבנים. נודע לי שרמי והצוותים ותושבי פטיש הצלחנו להציל 750 ילדים. כל אזרח שנמצא בסיטואציה כזו, פחות או יותר, צריך לחשוב על מישהו אחר, על משהו אחר, על חבר, על אח, על דוד. אני מסרתי את החיים שלי באותו יום, בלי לדעת כלום. מה שהניע אותי כבר, להיכנס פנימה, לא עם מדים, לא עם שכפ"ץ, לא עם קרמי, לא כלום, לא עם נשק. זה ההודעות של ההורים. הם הניעו אותי, הם פתחו לי את הלב. כל הילדות שלי, חוכמת חיים שלי, החינוך שקיבלתי מבית, מאמא, התנקז לאותו יום. בחנוכה יש כמה משמעויות של החג הזה. זה אור, באותו יום זה היה רמי. לפחות ככה ראיתי את זה בשנה האחרונה, שאני מטייל בארץ וכולם רוצים לגעת בי, ואומרים לי שאתה אור. הניסים שהיו באותו יום, זה חנוכה, נס חנוכה, שרמי הוציא המון ילדים מהביתה. טיפת חוכמת חיים שלי זה השמן שהיה. החזרתי המון ילדים הביתה. המסר שלי הוא הכי פשוט. תדברו פחות, תעשו יותר. כשתעשו יותר, הסביבה של המדינה שלי תראה עוצמתית ואחרת. כי אין לנו מדינה אחרת. שהעם שלנו יודע לתת לכל מי שמושיט יד. כי זה אנחנו, שעם ישראל חי, והוא יחיה לנצח. ותודה.
What an epic story. 1,200 people were slaughtered on October 7th. It would have been 1,900 if it hadn't been for heroes like Rami Davidian. We're calling him a modern-day Maccabee, but maybe we should look back and call the Maccabees early-day Davidians. Incredible. On October 7th, Eylon Yahalomi, aged 12, was at home in kibbutz Nir Oz. Where else would he be on a Saturday morning? Early in the morning, Hamas terrorists stormed into his community and broke into his house. Eylon was flung over one motorcycle. His mother Bat-Sheva and his two sisters were thrown on a second motorcycle. His wounded father, Ohad, remained with Hamas death squads inside the house. The terrorists began speeding towards Gaza. As they got close to the border, they spotted an IDF tank and panicked. Bat-Sheva's motorcycle fell, and she and her daughters managed to escape. They ran for their lives. And they watched Eylon, a 12-year-old boy, being dragged away across the border into Gaza. Eylon was held by Hamas terrorists in gruesome conditions until he was released in November last year after 52 days in captivity. Eylon's father, Ohad, is still a hostage in the Gaza terror dungeons. Bat-Sheva Yahalomi has been fighting for her husband's life for more than a year now. The surviving hostages in Gaza are barely clinging on to life. Time isn't running out, it's run out. Hamas continues to demand a ransom payment that will allow Hamas to remain in power in Gaza and prepare to carry out more October 7th massacres until Israel is destroyed, just as it's promising. There is only one thing that can change the status quo, and here's where you can step in and help create a modern-day miracle. We need more pressure on Hamas and Hamas's patrons, Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, until Hamas ends the war that it started, lays down its arms, and frees all the hostages. There hasn't been enough pressure on Qatar and Turkey. There hasn't been any pressure on Qatar and Turkey, two countries that openly support the Hamas terrorist regime. Western countries have leverage over Qatar and Turkey, and he must use it before it's too late. That's why Mandy Damari, mother of British-Israeli hostage Emily, ripped from her home in Kfar Aza, is demanding that Britain lead an international effort to get humanitarian aid to the hostages. But their appeals are falling on deaf ears among world leaders. We need you to fight for the hostages' lives. What Bat-Sheva Yahalomi has endured until now is unfathomable. She survived an abduction attempt. She's treating her son who survived Hamas captivity. And she's doing everything she can to rescue her husband from Hamas's terror dungeons. Bat-Sheva Yahalomi is a brave woman. She's a hero of Israel, and her fight is not yet over. This is her story.
We all entered the safe room, and while staying there and hearing lots of alarms, we started to hear also shouting in Arab outside the wall, outside the house. Lots of Allahu Akbar. We started to hear shooting on the house from outside. We started to smell smoke. We understood something very different and very dangerous is happening. Ohad was standing outside the safe room, and he told us every few minutes that he loves us. He knew something very bad is going to happen. And at about 10 o'clock, they entered the house. They shot him. We heard him screaming. And then they entered the safe room. At that moment, I was already very cold mind, very in a survival mode, very thinking about how to save the children. I am with the baby on my hands all the time. She was only 1 year and 8 months, and the 2 children is near me. Ohad was still unconscious. I asked him what they want, not because I didn't understand what they want, but I wanted Ohad to tell me what to do. He told us that they are taking us to Gaza, and he told us to go with them. We stood outside the house on the street, waiting for our lift to Gaza. Pajamas, without shoes, without anything. The baby on me, the 2 children near me. While waiting outside, they were filming us. I was begging them to release the children. I couldn't understand. They are taking children with them to Gaza. I thought also that I'm a woman. It's also not catchable that they are taking me, but I'm an adult. Then okay, but the children, I couldn't catch it, and I begged them to release the children, but they didn't respond. Tan, my son, he was on the first motorcycle alone with the terrorist, and me and the 2 daughters were on the second motorcycle. At about 100 meters from the border, 2 tanks has arrived, 2 IDF tanks, and the terrorists were panicked and started to run. And the motorcycle of me and the 2 daughters were falling. And that was the last time I saw Eitan. The name I gave Eitan, that means he's strong and stable. I remember I thought that I hope the name I gave him will be on his size. The tank didn't stop, he couldn't stop. He was surrounded by hundreds of terrorists. So we ran to the fields. I hear the alarms all the time from the kibbutz. I see the rockets above us. And when getting to the northern gate from outside, we saw a bus coming. 2 soldiers were running to us. This was the first bus of IDF soldiers that has arrived to the kibbutz to save the people at about 2 p.m. After almost 8 hours of trying to survive. Only at the beginning of November, we had a formal confirmation that Ohad was kidnapped, and Eitan also, and that they are alive, both of them. Eitan, my son, was released after 52 days as part of the deal. When he came back, of course, it was a big relief and a big happiness. But then he started to tell about what he has been through. It's very hard to say how is Eitan now, because we are still in the trauma. Eitan got out, but Ohad, his father, is still there. We are Already 442 days to the war, and the war will not end until the 100 hostages that are still there, including Ohad, will return. Let our people go. Ohad, if you can hear us, I want to tell you that me and the children are okay. The last thing that you saw is us. We're taking in front of your eyes. We miss you a lot. We love you a lot. We are doing everything to save you and the other hostages. We are waiting for you.
So much steely courage to be able to raise a child, surviving, coming to terms with having survived Hamas captivity while fighting to get her husband out. A reminder that sometimes to be a hero, all you have is your voice and you keep fighting. As you can see, heroism can come from unexpected places. Ordinary citizens doing extraordinary things, and we're reading your comments on the YouTube broadcast. Please keep telling us what you think about these stories and how they're inspiring you. We're proud to amplify the voices of Israel's everyday heroes. That's what the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office is here for. Every day we're standing up for Israel, speaking out for the Jewish people, and making sure that our voices are being heard in the face of a world that's trying to drown them out. It's thanks to people like you, our supporters around the world, that the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office is able to do this important work. Thank you to all of you who have already contributed to our important cause. We have just a few days left until the end of our end-of-year campaign. All donations made by the end of the year are being matched by a generous anonymous donor. Your contribution will have double the impact now. It's a Chanukah miracle. Every dollar you donate will last twice as long. Please, please, please go to the JGIVE page in the notes of this YouTube broadcast and donate some spare Chanukah gelt to help us keep elevating the voices of Israel's everyday heroes as our country fights for its life and needs every single citizen speaking up. One of those heroes who's speaking up and whose voices we are elevating is Stav Cohen. Stav is an IDF Special Forces reservist. When he went to sleep on the night of October 6th, 2023, he was a civilian, a trainee lawyer. He wasn't expecting that the next day he'd find himself in uniform again. But on the morning of October 7th, as soon as he knew something was wrong, he didn't wait for the order. He jumped in his car and he drove down to his base. For the past 14 months, Stav has done many long tours of duty, jumping back and forth between military service and ordinary life. He's protecting his family, his friends, his country, all of us, our team. Stav has spent a great deal of time fighting terrorists in the West Bank, in the high ground overlooking the rest of Israel. In the city of Jenin, Palestinian terrorists dream that one day they will do what Hamas did in Gaza, use territory as a base to carry out a surprise attack, massacre as many Israelis as possible, and take survivors as hostages. The Iranian regime is doing everything it can to arm, fund, and train terrorists who could take over the West Bank just as they took over Gaza, just as they took over southern Lebanon, just as they took over Yemen, and attack Israelis. Men like Stav Cohen are putting their lives on the line to make sure that what happened on October 7th can never happen again, and when he's out of military service, he's using his voice to keep fighting. Stav is a hero of Israel. This is his story.
My name is Stav Cohen. I'm 29, grandson to a Holocaust survivor. Grew up in a small moshav, small community in the center of Israel. On October 7th, as soon as I understood that something big is going on, I left. And when I was on my way down south, I got the call-up order. So I was on my way to the unit, right, to the base. And the sirens kept coming and the explosions kept coming. I pulled over, tried to find shelter, and I could see we were like 3 or 4 cars that stopped at the same place. I could see this mother with curly brown hair. She hugged her, I'd say 5-6-year-old kid. She like this, you know, she hugged him and she put her head down and he was so afraid he tried to tuck his fingers in the gap between the shoe and her ankle. He was so afraid, he tried to hide inside of her. That's the true image of the war right there. You'll open the news, the media, you'll never get what truly the war is. I was driving south, right? And the sirens kept coming, the explosions kept coming. And every few, seconds, I had to pull over because the rockets kept coming. And then I realized that I'll never get there, that way. And even more, every time that I'm pulling over for a couple of minutes, more lives of innocent people are being taken. Think about it. That's the state of mind. Think about it this way. You are special forces, and they taught you that each second counts, And every time that you have to pull over, more people are dying. In this moment, I realized that I don't matter anymore. Stav is on hold. Now I serve a bigger cause than me, than my life, than what I want to do. And Am Yisrael is in the center. And Am Yisrael, that's the mother with the curly hair and the 5-year-old kid. That's Am Yisrael, the Holocaust survivors in Israel, the Christians, Jews, Arabs. That's Am Yisrael. And they're in the center. The moment I found out that Omri, my childhood friend, got murdered on October 7th, I cried. That was the first and only time that I cried, I think in the past 10 years or so. The terrorist came to the Nova Festival, shot Omri all over his body. He bled badly. And two of our other friends, Tzur and Aviad, also same group, they were with him as Omri passed out. Tzur and Aviad never left him. Even though they had terrorists coming after them while they're shooting at them, Tzur and Aviad grabbed Omri and ran with him. He died during that run, and they still, against every logic, held his body. They were way slower than they're supposed to do, and they paid with their lives because they also got murdered. I've been fighting in Judea and Samir for the past 11 years now, even more, right? I've been fighting Hamas, Jihad, Fatah, any proxy of Iran you want, name it, they're there, and they have abilities. And when you're saying Judea and Samaria, West Bank, people need to realize that you're talking about 1.5 million people, Palestinians, and 500,000 Jews. Potentially, if you'll have an October 7th from Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, in a matter of minutes, you can have thousands of terrorists in the most center cities of Israel, Kfar Saba, Tel Aviv, you name it, It's way closer than the Gaza Strip to Israel, and it's way longer because it's like a strip from east to Israel. Imagine a wave coming all to the center of Israel. In Judea and Samaria is very, very dangerous front. It's an endless front. If we weren't fighting in Judea and Samaria on a nightly basis, you'd had October 7th, October 8th, October 9th, October 10th from Judea and Samaria in the center of Israel. They interviewed me last week to this talk show called IDF Heroes You Have to Meet. And as soon as they asked the first question, I mumbled, I blacked out. I told them, guys, this isn't right. I'm not an IDF hero you have to meet. The true heroes cannot be interviewed no more. The true heroes are lying beneath the ground. When people are praying, wherever they'll be, we can feel it. And I tell you what, I'm not a religious person, so I don't have the religious explanation, and I have no idea how, but we can feel it. Anyone can be a fighter. You don't need a weapon. Weapon will only get you this far, but if we want to go all the way, we should never go fast. We should go together. We should unite, and we should stand for the truth. Post a story, a reel, talk to my neighbor, just be a fighter of the truth.
Stav is what we call in Hebrew Ish Safa V'Saifa, a man of the book and of the sword. A bit like King David, who was a warrior who also put pen to paper and used his words to inspire others. Tell us in the comments what you think about his story. You may recognize Stav Cohen because he's one of our citizen spokespeople, presenting our daily briefings, creating content through us, using his time when he's out of reserve duty to continue the fight, using his words. On October 8th, 2023, one day after the October 7th massacre, the Hezbollah terrorist army in Lebanon opened a second front against Israel. Over the next 13 months, Hezbollah fired nearly 20,000 rockets, guided anti-tank missiles, and suicide drones into Israeli cities and towns. More than 60,000 Israelis were forced to flee their homes in northern Israel because Hezbollah was shooting at them. Many people in northern Israel returned to their homes. They endured constant rocket attacks from Hezbollah. One of the places in northern Israel that was not evacuated was the town of Majd al-Shams. Majd al-Shams is a Druze town in the Golan Heights. On July 27th, 2024, Hezbollah fired a rocket that struck a football pitch in the town. The blast killed 12 Druze children. The images were devastating. Ali Tarabia is a first responder. He arrived quickly to the scene of the massacre and saved lives. Ali is not Jewish, but he's a proud Israeli. He's also a modern-day Maccabee. Ali is a hero of Israel. This is his story.
בערך פעם בשבוע, פעם בשבועיים יש לך אזעקה 2. ותמיד חשבנו שזה רחוק מאיתנו וזה לא יקרה כלום, זה פשוט מלחמה שלהם. עד האסון במג'דל אל-שמס, זה לקח אותנו למקום אחר לגמרי. האירוע ב-27 ביולי זה היה יום שבת, בדיוק היינו מתכננים לצאת לעשות פיקניק על האש. אני אשתי עם הילדים. היה הודעה מהפרמדיק האזורי שלנו. היה לי, יש איזה מקרה במג'דל, נפילה בתוך מגרש כדורגל, וכנראה יש פצועים. באותו רגע עזבתי את הכל, ולמזלי הייתי שם בדיוק עם האוטו, עם כל הציוד באוטו. לפני כל יציאה הייתי רב עם האישה, אומרת לי, תוריד את הדברים של איחוד הצלה, אין לנו מקום לדברים, ואז לא הראתי כלום. הנעתי את האוטו והתחלתי לטוס לכיוון מג'דל. תוך כדי נסיעה, עוד אזעקה, ועוד אזעקה, ועוד אזעקה, והיה ממש נפילות בכל המרחב שם. אני בין המקום, אז נכנסתי דרך המטעים, וכאילו להגיע כמה שיותר קרוב. ואני מתחיל להבין על איזה אסון אני מתקרב. עם כל הציוד רץ לכיוון המגרש, לא ציפיתי לראות מה שראיתי. כאילו, אנחנו לא מכירים את זה. זה מקום כל כך שקט שאנחנו לא מכירים את המראות האלה, לא מראים את הדברים. אתה רואה אנשים, הכאוס שהיה שם, אי אפשר לתאר אותו. אמרו לי כבר בטלפון תוך כדי, יש לך מעל 40 פצועים. אני נכנס למגרש ואני רואה ילדים שוכבים מחוסרי הכרה. לרגע אתה חושב שבתוך סרט, דברים שלא מהמציאות. הוא כבר יודע שאין לי מה לעשות איתם. מתחיל להתקדם איפה שיש ילדים שכן צועקים וכן אפשר להציל אותם. למזלנו שהיה מלא רופאים שם. אזור רמת הגולן הוא עם האחוז רופאים הכי גבוה בארץ, לפי האוכלוסייה. ולמזל שהיה שבת והרבה אנשים בבית. ואז כל אחד ידע לתת מענה, כולם ירדו. כמובן היה שם מלא חופשים, גם של איחוד הצלה, גם של מד"א, גם הצבא הגיע בשלב יותר מאוחר. עבדנו תחת אזעקות. אתה מטפל באנשים בהזעקת צבע אדום תוך כדי. הבית חולים הכי קרוב זה צפת זיו, שזה שעה ורבע נסיעה. ואז אני מתחיל לשאול, איפה שאר הילדים, איפה הפצועים? ואז אחד אומר לי, הרוב במרפאות, כל הילדים שם, כל האנשים שם. ופה היה הדבר שאי אפשר לתאר. פה היה הכאוס האמיתי. אתה מגיע בתוך מרפאה מעל 40 ילדים. תראה אנשים בוכים, מסתכלים עליך, מי זה המלאך שבא, כל אחד מגיע עם אפוד. תראה, אבא מושך אותך מפה, אמא מושך אותך מפה, בוא תציל את הילד שלי. אי אפשר לתאר את המראות שהיו שם, אי אפשר לתאר את זה. הסוג של הפצעים האלה שאנחנו לא מכירים, אני אף פעם לא היה לנו פצעים כאלה של מלחמה. זה היה יום קשה, שזה השפיע על כולנו, השפיע על כל רמת הגולן. הקורקינטים, האופניים החשמליות, הטרקטורונים של הילדים, אותם ילדים שהיו שם, זה עדיין שם בפינה. התמונות שלהם זה עדיין שם. ואשכרה אנשים הולכים לשם רק לראות את הזירה היום. ויצא לי גם אחרי האירוע לפגוש ילדים שהצלתי אותם. אחד מהילדים אשכרה ראה אותי, דוד שלו, וראה שאני פיניתי אותו באמבולנס. הוא התחיל לבכות, הדוד. הוא לא יודע איך להגיד תודה. כל הצער הזה זה משמח שאתה רואה שאתה הצלחת לעשות משהו, הצלחת לעזור. בזכות המקרה הזה, האסון במג'דל שמס, גם קרו דברים טובים. הרבה אנשים העריכו מה זה כוח רפואי, העריכו מה זה חובש בשטח. כי הרבה אנשים שהגיעו לשם לעזור, אבל לא היה להם מה לעשות, ואמרו לנו את זה. אז בזכות זה פתחנו עוד קורס חדש. מלא אנשים נרשמו לזה. אתה רואה האנשים הישראלים, היהודים שבאו לנחם, אנשים שלא מירושלים, פשוט עלו על רכב ובאו לנחם את ההורים שם, ולא מכירים אף אחד. אני דווקא מכונאי רכב, אני רק מתנדב באיחוד הצלה. גם אם לא משנה מה, אני מתחת למנוע של אוטו ויש קריאה, אז מצדי זה קודם כל איחוד הצלה, ללכת להציל חיים. בעיניי זה לא משנה אם חזבאללה פוגע בערבי, בנוצרי, במוסלמי, ביהודי. בשבילנו זה כולנו ישראלים, כולנו בני אדם, לכולם יש זכות לחיות בשקט, בלי מלחמה ובשלום. אני רק רוצה שיהיה אחדות העמים, שיהיה שלום. יש לי חברים יהודים שהם כמו אחים, גם מוסלמים כמו אחים, גם נוצרים כמו אחים. אני מעניין אותי שיהיה מולי בן אדם, לא מעניין אותי איזה דת. וזה מה שאני מצפה מכל העם ישראל, שנהיה מאוחדים, שנהיה כמו אחים.
What an inspirational story. We're all human beings, and Israel is fighting now not only for Israel and the Jewish people, but for all of humanity. Tell us in the notes, the YouTube, what you think about his story, other modern-day Maccabees who are inspiring you, and where you are following us from, what your Chanukah plans are. We want to know. ShaiDavidai is an assistant professor at Columbia University. He's also a Jewish civil rights activist. Since October 7th, Shai has become the leading voice for Israel and Jewish safety in American academia. He's holding universities to account for how they have let the campus Tentifada movement take over quads. Shai never expected that he would be fighting for Jewish safety in the United States, a country long perceived to be safe and welcoming for Jews. But when Shai saw his own colleagues at Columbia protesting in favor of the Hamas rapist regime, he realized that if his kids had been taken hostage on October 7th, his colleagues wouldn't be standing with him. They wouldn't be putting up hostage posters. They wouldn't be wearing pins and dog tags. They'd be taking the side of the kidnappers. Shai understood Israel advocacy is a Jewish safety issue. Because when Israel is attacked on the basis of lies and deranged ideologies, Jewish communities around the world suffer. The October 7th massacre has taught us that Israel and the Jewish diaspora are in the same boat. There's no way that one swims while the other sinks. There's no way that lies about Israel go unchallenged and Jews around the world remain safe. Israel needs a strong diaspora, and the diaspora needs a strong Israel. That's why Israel advocacy is a Jewish civil rights issue. When Jews were under attack at Columbia, ShaiDavidai stood up and he said, "Not on my watch." Shai has paid a price. Shai is a hero of Israel. This is his story.
I'm ShaiDavidai. I'm an assistant professor of management at Columbia Business School, and for the past 14 months, a reluctant activist. Being in New York City, October 7th actually started for me, October 6th, 11:29 p.m. We got a WhatsApp message from my wife's sister. There was a picture of her baby, son at the time was 1 year old, in diapers, looking at the TV screen, and the TV screen says, "Barrage of rockets on central Israel." I remember feeling so weak and useless sitting in the comfort of my home in Manhattan. Well, this is happening in my home in Israel. For all of us, the most critical day was October 7th, regardless of whether you're in Israel or not. But then for Jews in the diaspora, the most critical day was, or the second most critical day was October 8th, where we thought that given the sites of the massacre, given the fighting was still going on in Israel, we would have some support, we would have some understanding from the world, And instead, this 8th front was open on October 8th. In Times Square was already a protest against Israel on October 8th, 2023. On October 12th, 2023, seeing 800 students, faculty, and staff at Columbia cheering over the sites of October 7th massacre, it shocked me so much that I told myself, something needs to be done. Someone has to say something. But at no point did I say, I will be the person that does it. But the thing that I did say to myself was, someone needs to say something. The war is still going on, but also the ideological war outside of Israel is still going on. And not many people are stepping up to fight, especially not in academia. And until they do, I don't feel like I have the privilege to stop. The two main responses were hate and indifference. When you take the indifference and the hatred together, what you end up getting is the indifference enabling the hatred to grow uninterrupted, leading to me being investigated for my actions. For the past year, I've been investigated for my social media presence, me being suspended from campus when there were encampments in which Jews who refused to recant their relationship to Israel were not allowed in. And on the October 7th memorial, being suspended again because I was speaking up against the administration's willingness to allow pro-Hamas celebrations on October 7th annual anniversary. The important thing is, no matter what happens, I will have definitely done this again a million times over. Despite the pain, despite the dozens of times of me breaking down, despite the fact that it's affected my physical health, despite the fact that it's all but ruined my career, because it's the right thing to do. It's scary speaking up. It's uncomfortable breaking any norm, even if it's the smallest minor norm. People have self-doubt. Even when they know the difference between right and wrong, they are worried that they might say not the exact right thing. So you can see, a lot of people look at someone like me and say, yeah, it's great that he's speaking up, but look at the cost that he's paid, personal, professional. I don't want to experience that. And in that sense, they might be right. The scariest thing that had personally happened to me on campus is the normalization of hatred. I've been screamed at. I have had my kids' pictures posted on social media. I've had my address posted on social media, my class schedule with the tagline, go harass him. I've had almost every death threat possible. I've had people with Hamas and Hezbollah and PFLP and Al-Qaeda flags in my face screaming. All of that I can deal with. That is hatred. Hatred is irrational and I can deal with. The indifference is the scariest part. On October 7th, 2024, when there was a Hamas celebration on campus by Columbia students, faculty, and staff, I did not focus on the students, the faculty, and the staff that hate me. I focused on the administrators that were there who did nothing. And to see their faces as they are looking at the hatred, knowing the hatred is wrong, but are frozen from doing anything, that to me was the scariest moment. As you're celebrating Hanukkah, I want you to remember two important things. In the days of the Hashmonaim, there was no Columbia University and there was no social media. Imagine if at that time we had indoctrination in universities and misinformation on social media. We may not have made it so far. It's our job to make sure that years from now, people will still remember the ness of Hanukkah, but also the ness of the State of Israel, and to keep fighting the misinformation and the indoctrination.
ShaiDavidai is a hero, reminding all of us that sometimes we have to pay a price to do the right thing because the cost of indifference and silence is too high. Tell us in the comments what you think about his story, and if you want to hear more from Shai, we recently filmed an episode of the State of a Nation podcast here in this same studio. It's available on the Israel State of a Nation with Eylon Levy YouTube channel. You can also watch it wherever you get your podcasts and hear more about his fight for Jewish student safety on campus. The next story is personal for me. The Iranian regime and its proxies have been attacking Israel on 7 fronts, 8 including the diaspora, for the past 14 months. Hamas in Gaza, terrorists in the West Bank, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthi pirates in Yemen, the Iranian militias in Syria, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, and the Iranian regime itself. This war marks the first time that the Iranian regime directly attacked Israel from Iranian soil. A few months ago, on October 1st, Iran fired nearly 200 ballistic missiles at Israel. It was a night where everyone remembers exactly where they were. I was meant to go to a family wedding that night. My cousin Sapir Levin was meant to marry her fiancé, or Buchris. But just before the reception, everyone in Israel received an emergency alert on their phones. The Iranian regime is about to fire ballistic missiles. Stay near your shelters and do not move. Then the Iranian regime unleashed the biggest ballistic missile attack in history and sent everyone in Israel running to bomb shelters. I assumed the wedding was off, obviously. But as soon as the last ballistic missile exploded and we got the all clear from the IDF, I texted the bride's sister. Is this still happening? She said, yes, come. The chuppah's about to start. I ran to the venue, and there were the bride and groom dancing to I Will Survive, minutes after emerging from the bomb shelter in the basement of the wedding hall. Sapir and Ol remind us that despite it all, we choose life. And we'll never let jihadi death cults keep us down. Sapir and Ol are heroes of Israel. This is their story.
זה הרגע שאמרו לנו שהמתקפה מאיראן. זה היה ממש כאן. אני הייתי בשוק, הייתי, לא. ואור אמר לי, יהיה בסדר, אל תדאגי, יהיה בסדר. ביום שישי היה שמועות שחיסלו את נסראללה. אמרתי לאור, לא נראה לי שתהיה חתונה. זה מלחיץ. באיזשהו שלב גם אנחנו חתכנו את הצילומים שמצטלמים כזה לפני. אנחנו אמרנו, אנחנו לא יכולים לזייף את זה יותר. אני בכיתי וחייכתי. זה היה כבר כאילו, הרגשתי שזה כבר לא איך שאני רוצה שזה ייראה.
כולם אמרו לנו, תחשבו חיובי.
ואנחנו למעשה הבנו בפעם הראשונה מה קורה, בהזעקה הראשונה, שירדנו למקלט, ולא הבנו למה לא יוצאים אחרי 10 דקות. היו לנו 350 מוזמנים, ובסוף הגיעו 100 וקצת אנשים. הרב לא הצליח לצאת. כל רגע הוא יוצא, מתחילה עוד אזעקה ועוד אזעקה. אנשים ניסו להשיג מוניות, לא היו מוניות. העיר, בתל אביב לפחות, הכל נסגר. הצליחו לשתק את הכל. עלינו מהמקלט אחרי שעה, שכל הקבלת פנים נערכת במקלט, הורידו לנו צ'ייסרים. ושרו שירים.
ומנות ראשונות.
מנות ראשונות. המלצרים חילקו מנות ראשונות למטה. לא כל האנשים הסכימו לרדת למקלט באזעקות.
סבא שלי בן 90, הגיע לפה יחד עם סבתא שלי מנהריה, והוא סירב ללכת להתפנות למקלט. סבא שלי יושב שם, והוא ביקש שיביאו לו סטייק וויסקי, ויש אזעקות ברקע ורואים פה את העירותים.
את העירותים מלמעלה.
וכולנו במקלט והוא מסרב לרדת.
הוא אמר, אני הגעתי לחתונה של הנכד שלי, ואני לא יושב בחתונה כזאת במקלט. אני עשיתי את כל הדרך, אני ניצול שואה, אני חייתי כל חיי בצפון, אני מכיר את המלחמות האלה, אני לא יורד למקלט. גם אחרי החופה אנחנו לא ידענו אם תהיה חתונה או לא. הרב הצליח להגיע, אמרנו נעשה חופה, היו שמועות על מתקפת טילים שנייה, על זה שזה יימשך, אמרו לנו טוב, מהר, בואו נעשה את החופה ואחר כך נחליט. בסוף קיבלנו את ההחלטה ב10:30 אחרי החופה, שממשיכים עם הריקודים והכל. אנחנו כאן ואנחנו נשמח על אף כל האיומים, כי אנשים עשו את המאמץ והגיעו במתקפת טילים, ושכבו בכביש חוף, ובאיילון על הרצפה השתתחו בשביל להיות בחתונה שלנו. אנחנו חייבים לעשות את זה, וזה היופי של העם שלנו, שלא משנה מה, אנחנו נשמח ונרקוד, ואחרי כל השעות האלה היה כיף. ממש. אמנם היו רק 100 אנשים, הם שתו כמו 350. אנשים סיימו פה את הערב באיזשהו פורקן אחרי כל המתח שהיה מהצהריים, שלא ידעו מה יהיה במדינה. אני הבנתי, אנחנו היינו כאן, אבל אנשים אמרו שזה היה מפחיד ברמה והרגיש כאילו סוף העולם הגיע.
התעלינו אפילו על עצמנו.
כן.
עם כמה שזה היה מורכב, פשוט החזקתי כזה, תפסתי ככה את הידיים חזק, אמרתי לה, אנחנו מתחתנים.
אם לי יש את הזכות לעמוד פה ולהתחתן, אני עושה את זה. יש אנשים שכבר לא התחתנו לעולם, מה-7 באוקטובר.
אבא שלי היה שבוי במלחמת יום כיפור במצרים. גם משפחה שכולה מהצד של אמא שלי, איבדה את דוד שלה, הוא עלה על מוקש, כשהוא חרש את השדות בצפון הארץ, באלמגור. הרגשתי שזה נשגב מאיתנו לבטל. כאילו זו לכאורה הייתה ההחלטה הכי קלה. אם ישאלו אותי מחר, מה זה להיות יהודי בעיניך, או ישראלי,
הערב הזה.
זה הערב הזה, זה לא לוותר, זה להעביר מסר של אחדות, שמי שרוצה לחיות איתנו בשלום, הוא מוזמן.
הדי-ג'יי שם את השיר I will survive, ואני חושבת שזה הרגע שעשה לנו תפנית בערב גם, אנחנו מקיימים את החתונה, ומקיימים אותה בצורה הכי שמחה והכי טובה. היה משהו סימבולי נורא בשיר הזה באותם רגעים.
לדעתי, עם ישראל חי ביג טיים.
What an amazing story. Mazal tov, Sapir and all. That's a wedding that they will never forget, neither will any of their guests. It was a wild night. I'd just given an interview here in the studio, ran to the wedding, made it back for another interview here, ran back to the wedding. Israelis choose life. That's what it means to be a modern day Maccabee. Rafael Hayun, Esther Marcus, Rami Davidian, Bat-Sheva Yahalomi, Stav Cohen, Tarabia, ShaiDavidai, Sapir Levin and old Buchris. 8 stories of modern-day Maccabees in the October 7th War. I hope you found these 8 stories to be meaningful and inspiring. It's been a horrible year. Since October 7th, 2023, Israel has been fighting a war we didn't start, we didn't want, we didn't expect, but one we have to win. A war that is existential, as we come under attack on 7 fronts and are fighting to keep terrorist armies away from our borders, because we choose life. And these modern-day Maccabees give all of us strength, because we know that Israel's greatest asset is our people, their spirit, their courage, and their zest for life. That zest for life is a miracle, like the miracle that these candles have lasted for the whole broadcast. If you wish to support the important work that we are doing at the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office, please go to the JGIVE crowdfunding page in the notes. The Maccabees found a little jar of oil. We found an anonymous donor. The Maccabees jar lasted 8 nights. Thanks to our anonymous donor, every $1 you donate will become 2. And by helping to support our work, you too can be a modern-day Maccabee, supporting the fight for Israel's future and the safety of the Jewish people. On behalf of the entire team at the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office, and thank you to the entire team at the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office for putting on this incredible production and producing these inspirational stories for posterity. I wish you a happy Chanukah. Chag Chanukah Sameach. Thank you, and Am Yisrael Chai.